guys, hope everyone's having a great day. So there's a topic that I've wanted to discuss with all of you and share with all of you for quite some time. It is a pretty vulnerable topic, but I know it's important for me to share because I understand that there's going to be a lot of people who can relate on this topic with me. So I think that there's probably a lot of people, actually I know in fact there's a lot of people that assume that I've been fit my entire life and that I've been living this lifestyle forever. Well, that actually is not the case. So some of you may have been following me for quite some time, and some of you may have just literally started following me. I do have a YouTube account and an Instagram account. So I wanted to share with you what my life was like prior to 2012. So I was partying all the time, drinking, eating poorly. To be honest with you, the highlight of my entire week was the weekend. I literally lived for the weekend because that's all I wanted to do was party hard and just not really have a care in the world, to be honest with you. Honestly, I knew deep down that I wasn't happy, but instead of actually dealing with the problems that I was having, you know, being insecure, not being happy with my job, not being happy in any relationship, and just having, you know, friends that were party friends. I mean, I would literally just drink with them and not talk to them at all anytime. So I decided to just continue to ignore the problem and just keep partying on the weekends and just not dealing with it whatsoever. So I honestly didn't care how much I drank. I didn't care what I ate, how much I ate. And then each weekend night that this would happen, what I would do is I would go to the gym the next morning, throw on a hoodie and sweatpants and literally think I could sweat out everything, all the bad things that I had just done the night before to my body, speaking of alcohol and horrible foods. Well, most people know by now that you cannot outwork a bad diet. So obviously I thought that I could, so I just kept trying and saw zero results in my physique. So we're still talking about 2012 here. I was at Anytime Fitness in Hermantown, Minnesota. That's where I'm originally from. I now live in Phoenix, Arizona. And a trainer came up to me and asked if I had ever thought about competing in a bikini competition. Now, this was just when bikini was starting to boom a lot. It was fairly new. I had heard about it, but I really didn't know what it took to do a competition, what to do in the gym, what to eat. I really just didn't know anything at all about the sport. So I hired her as my personal trainer and prep coach for the show, and we started to go to work. Obviously, when you're looking to make a transformation, there's things that you have to cut out of your life. It's just one of those things where you either want the bad food and booze or you want the results. You really can't have both. Of course, there is balance, but especially talking about bikini competitions, this is far more serious. So I was on a pretty restricted meal and nutrition plan. I was hitting it really hard in the gym, weightlifting, and incorporating that with cardio. I continued to prep for the show. It was the Gopher State show in Minnesota, and I placed third in my class. For those of you who are unfamiliar with competing, classes go by height for the females. So obviously after my first show, I was completely hooked. I watched my body transform. I built all the confidence in the world. I quit drinking, I quit eating terrible. My life was turning around for the better. And I mean, it was really just a huge life-changing moment for me. Depending on where your physique is at, most competitors are allowed 1 to 2 refeed or cheat meals a week. It really just depends on where your physique is at, how your body is handling the food, etc. There's many factors that can go into this. Everything was going great, and I was literally just on top of the world after I had competed in my first show. So when you are on a restrictive diet, there's foods that may look good and may look bad. So good foods, bad foods. So unfortunately, what I started to develop was looking at every single food, pizza as bad, chicken as good. And it kind of can mess with your mental state of mind when you're constantly like overanalyzing good food, bad food. It can be a little obsessive at times, but I knew that's what it took to do a show. So this is where the word post-show comes in. I'm sure you've heard of this word before if you follow any competitors or people that used to compete back in the day. You've probably heard of post-show blues. You've heard about competitors blowing up after the show. And that all comes down to a reverse diet. So a reverse diet is slowly and gradually working your calories from a little bit lower to higher up to everyday living. If you go from really low calories to really high calories in a short amount of time, you will gain body fat, and let me tell you, you will gain it frickin' fast. So when I was doing my refeed meals during my competition prep, I was only allowed one cheat meal a week, not a cheat day. One meal out of my 6 meals would be a cheat meal. So I was told to go out, have what you want, don't go too crazy, but enjoy yourself. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So what started to happen is that I started to develop an unhealthy relationship with food. Before I was talking about the good foods versus the bad, because I was restricted, pretty much every single day. And when I would go out, I would stuff myself so full of food that my stomach would be in excruciating pain after the cheat meal, and I would basically just stuff myself until I felt like I was going to puke. I would do that because I thought, hey, this is the only opportunity that I have to eat a cheat meal. I'm going to have to wait till all the way next Saturday to be able to do this again. So as you can imagine, obviously this problem, also known as binge eating, did not resolve on its own. I was never throwing up my food or anything like that. It never got to that point. Obviously, the issue did not resolve on its own, so I decided to talk to my coach about it and tell her what was going on, and she agreed to help me. So that is where flexible dieting came in, where you have a certain amount of carbohydrates, a specific amount of protein, and a specific amount of healthy fats in your caloric amount that you're allowed daily. So she taught me about macros, and she taught me that you can eat foods that you like. You just have to be able to track your macros in your MyFitnessPal. Once I started to incorporate foods that I liked, I no longer started looking at foods as good, bad. It was just hit your daily macro amount and you're good. And just to be clear on this, flexible dieting can get a bad representation, and I'm talking about eating 80 to 85% clean, the rest foods that I like. I'm not saying here's your macros, eat a bunch of shit, because that's not what I'm saying. That's not going to allow you to reach your goals, and you're not going to feel very good or energized by any means. So she helped me incorporate foods that I would like. I learned a ton of information about flexible dieting, macros, and my problem with cheat meal, binging, stuffing my face until I was sick did stop, and I was able to turn everything around, and I no longer look at a food and say, oh, that's a bad food or that's a good food. So since my first show in 2012, I have competed in 8 more competitions, and I have no longer ever had a bad prep. I've no longer dealt with binge eating or anything like that. So all I'm saying here is that I cannot stress enough how much value I have learned from my coaches. I'm a coach and I have a coach, and it is really important to have someone in your side of the corner that's going to be able to help you, good or bad days, and just be there for you. Well, that is my story about my first show, and all of the other 9 competitions, or the 8 competitions, have been a wonderful experience. And I'm not saying that my first show was a bad experience by any means, but I just wanted to share with you some behind the scenes information that does go on that, you know, obviously I didn't post on social media. That's why I'm doing a YouTube video on it so I can share with you. So thank you so much for listening to my story, and you know, I hope it was inspiring to one or of all of you.